Well, speaking of, choose my words carefully here, but I think it's spiritual warfare when we see this grab for global power. And that's what the World Health Organization has been all about. This week, the Intergovernmental Negotiating Body of the World Health Organization has been meeting to continue discussions for a proposed global pandemic treaty and modifying some of their operating procedures. And as I've discussed on the program before, despite tremendous public opposition, these unelected bureaucrats are seeking to give the WHO increased authority to override both the freedoms of individuals and the sovereignty of states. They want to become the pandemic police. Joining me now to discuss this and give us an update is James Roguski. He is a member of the Law and Activism Committee at the World Council for Health. James, welcome back to the program. I think you're muted. I see we get his voice back.
My bad. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate you having me back. And the meetings this week have been an exercise in secrecy. The only thing that they revealed so far was that they had other meetings in the interim from their last set of secret meetings and this set of secret meetings. They had really secret meetings. They did divulge that. They're going to be maybe meeting for about a half an hour or so on Thursday to just sort of wrap up and summarize what they did in secret. I mean, that really is the story. Why are they meeting in secret? Why are the public not allowed to see what's going on?
Why is that not a bigger story with the media? That this entity, which is seeking to amass more power, is afraid of transparency?
Obviously not for you because we're talking about it here, but that is exactly what they would like. Last year when they tried to push amendments through, if it's all done very quietly in secret and nobody pays attention, no one opposes that. And so what they have said that they are attempting to do is they currently are discussing what they call a zero draft. Most people would just say it's a working draft or a rough draft or something like that. All of the many nations have made proposals. One of the interesting aspects of it is you don't get to see which nation which made which proposal. They're trying to move at the end of this meeting to a first draft and a progress report, which they're then going to present to the World Health Assembly when all of the nations meet at their yearly meeting in Geneva, May 21st to the 30th.
So, James, let me ask you about, it's being done in secret. The public's not able to see. The public has weighed in, but they've ignored the public input in times past. But let me ask you about members of Congress. Are members of Congress being kept in the loop? Because obviously this is going to have implications for the United States.
Well, we've certainly tried to bring them into the loop. I'm sure you're aware, and many of your listeners may be aware, that there are two separate things being discussed. And so about the proposed treaty, Senator Ron Johnson proposed amendments to other legislation, and the majority essentially said that, the Senate doesn't need to weigh in on a proposed treaty, which is astonishing. Anyone who's read the Constitution, you realize that that's one of their primary jobs. In terms of the amendments, I think we talked last time, totally different story. Almost everybody has them completely confused.
So let's talk about there's two tracks, two issues. You've got the amendments, and then you've got the actual treaty. What is the timeline on both of those in terms of when might we see the WHO actually do something public instead of in terms of putting those in place?
They keep saying consistently that they are shooting for May of 2024. There is a concern that they could take out some of the amendments and agree to a certain small subset of it. I think we talked last time that last year they did exactly that. And this is the key to the confusion. People want to talk about the treaty because it's something that they're familiar with, that whole concept. But the amendments and the international health regulations include a method of adoption that is alien to people's awareness. There is no presidential signature needed. There is no advice and consent from the Senate needed. If 194 delegates who are unelected, unaccountable, and unknown get together in Geneva and agree to change international law, it becomes legally binding international law. They did that last year, and it doesn't want to register in people's minds because it really should not be that way, but it is.
I was talking with Senator Johnson about that. His measure is focused on the treaty. And as you aptly described that situation. So how do we stop these amendments to what they're operating under? How does the United States, well, let me rephrase that because the Biden administration wants this. How does Congress, with the limited authority they have, interject itself?
You know, I'm not going to sugarcoat what is a ridiculous situation. This is not an easy task ahead of us. Step number one is for people to be informed. The treaty itself is only a 32-page document. The first 12 pages is a bunch of propaganda. I think everybody on the planet can read 20 pages and understand what is actually going on. There's actually going to be a debate in the UK Parliament. You know, bless them, they called for a debate, and that's going to happen on April 17th. They're talking about the treaty, but most people have not read the document. Most of the politicians and the people in the media who are talking about it have not actually read the darn document. So my admonition to everybody is go to stopthewho.com. All of the official public WHO documents are right there. Download the zero draft, print it out, and if you really want to take action, highlight the parts that you don't like and print it out, highlight it, and make an appointment with your local congressperson. Many of them have multiple local district offices. Same for your senator. And go hand them a copy that's been annotated and circled with the parts that you don't like because they haven't read it.
Yeah, there's so many issues coming at us. Earlier in the program, talking about the Social Security Trust Fund and what our debt is doing, and the $6.9 trillion budget the president presented, and how that's going to lead us toward $50 trillion in debt in another 20 years. And then we have this, which is we are just surrendering our national sovereignty to a entity that has proven that it is ineffective and dangerous. So we're always having to make these levels of priorities, but I've been talking with members of Congress about this in the House, conservative Republican members. And in fact, they were having conversations even today about this, including this kind of in their negotiations with the administration over the debt ceiling. That's the biggest leverage point that Republicans have at this point is defunding the WHO. So if they take American funding out, is that sufficient to stop America from being impacted on this, or are additional steps needed?
Oh, absolutely. Additional steps are needed. And if you're having conversations with, people who are involved at that level, ask them a very simple question. Have they actually read the documents?
Many of them have. Many of them have, yes.
And those who have should be able to see exactly what these things are doing. What has been happening in the media and with most people is you get propaganda points. You don't get actual consideration of, look, this is what it says. It literally says an amendment to Article 3, that they would seek to remove the dignity, human rights, and fundamental freedoms of people. A change to Article 1 and Article 42 of the regulations would make recommendations mandatory or obligations.
Right.
Anyone who reads those should be able to comprehend that those are dramatic changes in the nature of the WHO. And when one party has changed fundamentally the foundation of the agreement, It's like being someone who's in an abusive relationship.
Right.
You don't argue for better terms. You exit the
Well,
WHO.
but the challenge, and that's the challenge here, is we're only working with a handful of, where we've got one half of one body that we can operate with, because we've got administration that is totally committed to this. James, I'm sorry we're out of time, but we're gonna continue to discuss this as this situation develops, because I'm with you. I see this as a great threat to freedom and to our well-being. James, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.